lifted my pinky up.
That was classy.
Right, it's Starbucks coffee.
I'm recording.
Yeah, I know. That's why we said the things.
That's why we said the things we do, because
he's not motivated by fun. He's just
everybody has their own thing. You know, some people are really excited about life and overly enthusiastic like me, and some people are like this guy right here, Ian. Say something, Ian.
Hey, everybody. All right, so it is NAB 2014, and usually we do our bloggers breakfast from the Riviera, but they shut down their buffet, so.
Yeah, we put them out of business. They don't want. It's like, oh, those guys are gonna come again.
So we're in the press room, eating some food, and we decided to hang out with DJ and crew from DSLR Film Noob.
I'm DJ from DSLR Film Noob, and I'm here with Tony and Sean, and I'm drinking this. It says Starbucks, but I think it's just some coffee that they stuck in a container over there.
It says Starbucks.
I think it's Starbucks coffee.
Really? I mean, what is it? What is Starbucks coffee? Do they have like their actual grounded coffee, or do they just buy it from someone else?
You can buy it.
Well, there's a Starbucks right downstairs. They probably just get it right from there in the convention center.
Oh, and then like fill it up and bring it up here?
I think
okay, so
you can get like by the crate or something like that.
Really?
It's like a wine box, but with coffee.
Personally, I don't care. I like
got this classy coffee. Wine box here. Let's drink some box wine.
They did a survey. People actually like McDonald's coffee better than Starbucks.
Really? Like blind taste test?
Yep. No, but it's the blind taste test. So.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
All right, so NAB.
Oh, NAB this year. Well, obviously the most exciting things that are on the show floor are the GH4 and the A7S from Sony.
Yeah.
The A7S, when I first heard about it, I basically blew it off because the announcement came out, and what they say? No internal HDMI. I mean, no internal 4K recording. And I mean, okay, so breaking that down, the A7S uses the Bonsai chip, and that's the Bonsai X. That's the same chip that they use in the AFX100, which is a 4K Handycam recorder, which means that the A7S is completely capable of recording internal 4K, but they're not going to do that. So, what the heck?
Well, I think their claim is that it would bulk up the camera. The design, they're looking at it as a stills camera first. The Alpha series has always been a stills camera first, and so you know it's a little bit bigger than my NEX7, but not a ton. And so they're basically going, okay, it's a stills camera. If we added 4K internal, it would bulk it up, and then would that defeat the purpose of going mirrorless to keep everything nice and sleek? Otherwise, just go with like an Alpha series, you know, the bigger one. So, but they're going with that because the mirrorless form factor has just been keep it as small as physically possible, and then if you want 4K. Add the accessory. I get that logic.
I think they might be lying to us though, because the Handycam is a 20 megapixel sensor. The A7S is a 12 megapixel sensor. Both of them can cover 4K, but one's scaling. The read time off of the 12 megapixel sensor is actually reducing the load on the processor, which means you need less cooling, less ventilation for the system. And I actually talked to the rep for a while because I went through this whole spiel, and he said, "You want to be honest about this?" I said, "What?" He said, "Talk to marketing." And I said, "What?" He said, "If we put 4K in here, what's it going to do to everything above it? It's going to eat up our entire product line." And so I understand where they're coming from, and that's why I was really negative on it to begin with. But then you saw it, I saw it, high ISO. I mean, that is sexy. I took that up to 3200 all the way up to 80,000 ISO, and my God, like. Basically, the 5D Mark III that I shoot on quite a bit, I cut out at about 6,400. That's as far as I'll push it. And 32,000, that's what, 10 stops, 11 stops above? And 80,000? That was me creaming my pants right there because I was so freaking excited about it. And immediately, that changed my opinion completely about it. I was upset about the 4K, but then when I saw the high ISO, I'm like, you know what? This thing could be covered in turd, and I would still really be excited about it.
It's got the issue is, I mean, it's great that they're moving to full frame. There's not a lot of lens coverage for full frame. They've got they announced like a prototype Cinema E mount lens, which I'm excited about as an FS700 shooter because that'd be a great lens for that. Hopefully, it isn't a fortune because like their PL servo lens was like 10 grand. So I mean, they got to keep it under 5 grand. For the target market of the FS700 type shooters to even be willing to buy it. But that's like one of their few full frame E-mount lenses. There's a couple out there, but The nice thing about it, though, when I was talking to him, is that if you do have a super 35mm sensor coverage E-mount lens, it'll work on that, and it'll just work in APS-C crop. So it's like having 2 cameras then, and then it still does shoot HD and 4K in that APS-C crop.
Oh, nice. So you basically have a super 35 push-in on top of that.
So that's pretty neat.
Yeah, and they were demoing actually the Metabones adapter for Canon lenses. Sony actually had Canon lenses at the booth that they were letting you test out. And the focus was a little bit slow, but honestly, I'm not buying a 12 megapixel camera for photography. I have plenty of photography cameras. I'm buying this because, holy crap, low light, and yeah, I'm gonna film with it. So I think it's really attractive. As soon as it comes out on pre-order, it's on my list. What about the GH4?
I mean, I've never been a
you
huge
like
fan.
attracted to the Micro Four Thirds?
I've never been a fan of Micro Four Thirds. I avoided it with the AF100. When the FS100 was announced, I got on that bandwagon. I was gonna buy one, then the 700 was announced, so I got that first, and then the 100 became my B camera. So I've kind of gone. That's why the E-mount series and all that kind of stuff is gonna line. And of course, I was a 5D shooter. Still use Canon for my DSLR for photography. So I have a whole series of L series glass that I use as my main stuff for shooting. So having that quick adaptability for that, and still covering a standard super 35mm sensor. Speed boosters are great. I don't know. I'm just not a big Micro Four Thirds fan. With speed booster functionality, that does change things, of course. I don't know. I've been a part of away from Panasonic for such a long time. I never got on the GH bandwagon, so I'd have to do some more research on it to see if that would be something I want.
I actually I convinced one of my friends to let me borrow his GH3 last week, and I spent last week playing around with the Olympus 12 to 40mm and the Panasonic 12 to 35mm f2.8, and I was the same as you. I hadn't really spent much time playing around with Micro Four Thirds. And the thing is, I didn't realize the major change in depth of field that you get going. I mean, I realized it in the back of my head. I know, okay, it's gonna be a little bit different, but I didn't realize how much different. At f2.8, it's like 6 feet of focus distance. To get shallow depth of field, you really have to be on top of your subject and have it zoomed all the way in. Otherwise, everything's pretty much in focus. So I'm a little concerned about that, but where I'm kind of excited about it, and I know 4K, everybody's really excited about 4K, but for the next couple years, I don't think 4K is going to be a thing that's going to affect me very much. Where that gets nice, though, is if I'm shooting something like what we're doing right now, I could put a 4K camera in front of us, box in you guys in a full 1080p window, box me in, and now I have 2 camera cuts, and I only have to use 1 camera. And that's
you don't have to have a Ben behind the camera.
Yeah, exactly. We don't have to have someone operating.
Yeah.
No Ben.
And
sorry,
so
Ben. See ya. You're no longer
free.
needed.
That part, that's the attractive part for me. And then, of course, if you want to do like some pan and scan type stuff, I know that's not the most attractive way to go, but sometimes it's kind of cool to be like, doo-doo-doo, and then
well, the other side of it too is post stabilization. Everybody's doing post stabilization software, but if you really have to crop in sometimes to get it as stable as you want it to be.
Yeah, I hate
shoot
the scaling.
4K.
You don't have to scale
that's
it.
not even an issue.
The only problem with the warp I don't know how much you guys have used warp stabilization. For me, it's kind of like sometimes it does a really good job, and sometimes it is just hideous.
Oh, yeah.
And you never really know for sure. Like we had a slider shot just recently where the guy that was operating the slider is the first time he'd used just a bearing slider, and there was no friction or anything on it. And when he started off, it was like this to begin with. We thought, oh, okay, we'll punch into 720p and we'll do some image stabilization on it, and it won't be any big deal. But when we actually did it, it didn't work out. It just created this like blurry, crappy bit for that, and we ended up having to cut away and then cut back again. And it worked out, but the image stabilizer the warp stabilization didn't take care of it. And then other times I'm holding a GoPro and I'm running around and I'm shooting at 2.5K and it works fine. It's like, oh yeah, my face is all stable and everything else is moving around.
Well, there's a lot of factors in it. Like motion blur, of course. If you're shooting at 24 or whatever frames per second, you're 180-degree shutter. If you get motion blur in the shot, you can stabilize it, but that
blur just looks there.
So, like one thing a lot of people should do if they're planning on shooting for stabilization, they should shoot at a higher shutter speed, and then you could go into like After Effects and force motion blur later on to get it to look more natural.
Yeah, using a third-party plugin that does a better job at blur.
Yeah, and a lot of the times we've had to use warp stabilization, we're kind of we weren't planning on using it. We're just like, oh well, you know, we got this option in post. We'll just see if it works.
We can fix it.
And sometimes you know, and sometimes not so much.
I find it works really great. I just use it very lightly when we do our aerial stuff. It works great with that. Found that works very well with the aerial shots.
I think the GoPro where it's come in handy is a lot of times it was at either 2.5K and 30 frames per second, or is at 60 frames per second at 1080p. Yeah. And then you have a lot of frames to work with.
It's 2.7. I shoot in 2.7 all the time. At
2.7. I'm sorry.
At 24, it doesn't go up to 30. But
the thing is, you got to always plan around it, because we had one shot where you're doing aerial and it was a little windy, so you're getting some drift. So like, okay, we'll stabilize it. But there were a couple shots where the flare was like center of the frame, and you stabilize that smooth, but then the flare is like dancing around.
Oh yeah.
So I've actually seen that in some like Jeep commercial. I was paying attention. Like, obviously they did aerial, and you could actually see the flare moving around. I mean, it happens, and it's just something you deal with.
Yeah.
So we kind of bounced around a little bit. We started.
Yeah. Now let's.
So where were we at on the GH4 again?
You were just talking about
the depth of
the depth of field, and then we kind of drifted off onto the 4K
We're not
stuff.
ADD at all.
Yeah, I know, right? So the other issue I have with the GH4 is, and I love the flip out screen. Like, I didn't think about it because I've been shooting on 5D Mark IIIs for so long, but I touched the flip out screen. I'm like, you know what? I don't have to have a field monitor on here. I can just turn this around really quick if I need to shoot something talking into the camera, and it's ready to roll. But look at where the HDMI port is on there, and look at where the audio headphone monitoring is on there. It's right behind the flip out screen. So when you flip it out, now you don't have the option to twist it, or if you twist it first and plug in, you're gonna be blocking your view of the screen because you have all the cables. Yeah. And the other thing, I'm not super excited about the brick. Let's just call it the brick. The thing that goes underneath of it that's the size of the freaking camera. I mean, it's really cool that they listened to the customers and they provided XLR inputs and SDI outputs, but it doesn't have its own battery. So now you have to have a 4-pin XLR adapter with like a V-Lock system or something like that to power it. And suddenly you go from this cute, adorable little like camera to this monstrosity that has to be mounted to a rig and attached to a bunch of stuff. How do you guys feel about that? I mean, I think that's
for me. I mean, it's going down the route kind of like the Blackmagic, you know,
getting awkward
cameras. I've always been great to get a Blackmagic cinema camera. We do a lot of motion control stuff, so getting a lighter camera on our system can help sometimes with stabilization. And of course, gimbal work. It'd be a perfect camera for gimbal if you can just freaking change the battery. You know, and instead now you gotta like run another power source to it. Like if you're in studio, not a big deal, but you know, if you're trying to go light, the Blackmagic camera could be lightweight. Yeah. If you can.
Then you have to attach a freaking battery to the bottom of it.
So. Yeah. And then of course, they come out with their new one, the Ursa, which is like the exact opposite. Like it feels to me like Blackmagic just can't make the ideal camera. They either have too little or too much. Like you got a pop out 10-inch iPad. You've got two Kindles on either side of it. And it's just, you know, it's cool. I mean, I understand the design philosophy of it was, let's just make a camera that no one would ever have to get out. You just put a lens on it and shoot. And for the most part, you can do that. But when's the last time you had one kit that worked perfectly for every single situation?
Never.
See, I'll strip down my FS700, put it on my motion control system, use it like that. I'll then kit it up and put it on my shoulder. I'll then, you know, switch it around, put it, you know,
the modularity is one of the strengths.
Yeah. So having, even though people complain about like the boxiness of like the FS series, it's ideal for putting into weird locations. And then when I need to kit it up, I can. So the Blackmagic camera is great if you're shooting in one style, like documentary work, you know, field work, stuff like that, where you just want to have something self-contained at all times. But for the average creative filmmaker that's going to be shooting in numerous scenarios using it on multiple gear, plus 17 pound. 17 pound. I mean, I've got a lot of Kessler stabilization gear.
But it's not rated for 17 pounds, right?
Right. Well, you put a lens on it, lens a couple pounds, you're really fastly approaching 20 pounds. Now you got to get a head that can meet that. And you know, it's just everything now has to be bulkier because you're getting that range.
Well, the Blackmagic camera in general, all of their stuff, and I know there's a lot of fans of Blackmagic stuff, so don't get me wrong, their cameras work. It's just that it seems like everything they release is 85, maybe 90% done, or 75, 80% done. I mean, come on. The pocket camera, you can't format your card inside the camera yet. It's been a year and some change, guys. Why didn't you freaking get that sorted out? That seems like a really simple thing that you need to be able to do. It doesn't have audio level meters on the screen. That's a software fix. Why wouldn't you have a programmer working on that? I mean, everybody's excuse is basically, well, it's a $1,000 camera. It's, you know, that makes the difference. Well, you know, it would make the difference if you just put a guy on this guy and fixed it really quick and then took care of it.
As I was talking to them, they were saying, you know, like their focus is very much on the new technology. I think they're more about getting new cameras out there and then seeing what the feedback is and then fixing it than necessarily doing the market research on
and getting it right the first time.
It's an interesting approach, and because their cameras are affordable enough that people don't mind having that as a second. I mean, maybe there are some people out there that have it just as a primary camera and they wish that it would be 100%. But a lot of people that I know just have it as a secondary camera and they use it when they need it. But I don't know. It's a totally. I mean, who are we to complain? Because we've yelled at Canon and Sony for so many years. Of like, why don't you steer the ship quickly? And then you get Blackmagic that's just bolting around. It's like, can you slow down a little bit?
They're steering the ship too quickly, and they're not focusing in on their products. Yeah. What do you guys think about their new studio camera with the giant like iPad basically glued onto the front of it?
As coming from a multicam director point of view, it's a great concept. In for a multicam scenario, I think would be perfect. The issue is like lenses, like you know, you can't use B4 lenses, so the traditional studio lenses are, I'm guessing, aren't going to work. So then you either have to get like, you know, Canon's new giant servo zoom lens, which would cover that, which would be way too expensive, or you got to use still glass, which doesn't necessarily have the zoom range that you might want. You know, maybe you can find like, you know, some kit lenses that might work. Yeah. But you know, it's the lens choice might be a little bit tough to do like a full range multicam, because like you want to do like a wide shot and then you want to zoom all the way into the platform. Yeah, that's a long lens. You know, you have to have that coverage for it. And there aren't a ton of still lenses that do that. We're used to swapping lenses and putting the right one on. You got your wide lens, you got your long lens. And so for doing that kind of broadcast scenario, unless you have a smaller facility, you know, you're shooting with, you know, only a few seats in front of you or something like that, there might be issues or difficulties in that range. But for the Blackmagic, I've worked with the ATEM. It's really, really cool. That's a great system for the multicam, and then to have a very affordable camera system that's just like it is, a monitor, a nice big monitor, and a sensor to put a lens on. And that's really all you need sometimes with that. Having a recorder built into it half of the time is not necessary because you're going to that multicam switch. Yep. And the price point's great. So in that market, I think it would be great. I think because it's going to be so new to some places, people might be afraid of it because they're so used to the traditional broadcast camera build. But once it starts becoming established, I think it'll be handy.
Well, I was happy too to see that they actually put XLR adapters on it as opposed to 1/4 inch adapters like they started out with. The screen thing, I don't know, the form factor looked a little wonky to me, especially if you're using the switcher, because you know you're gonna have somebody monitoring the cameras anyway. Do you really need that big a screen?
Oh, for focus, because you would have a focus controller on the tripod. Usually, you have your zoom control and your focus control for then using a dual stick tripod. So yeah, you want to have a nice big screen so that your operators are able to see that and pull focus properly. And so that made sense to me because most of the broadcast cameras I work with in studio scenarios have like a 7-inch or smaller screen. So having a nice 10-inch is good. The only issue I could see potentially is what we worked with it. We had the cameras on a platform and then we had them fairly high. So then the operation, you know, the tripod sticks were coming down low. Kind of had a high hat on it. So the camera was kind of above eye level. Yeah. The screen is a fixed angle. So you have, you know, if you put the camera high, you might have difficulty with that. So
isn't it? It's kind of at a slant too.
Right. So it's designed to have the camera right here. Yeah. But if you have the camera here,
at which point you're gonna have to have like a field monitor or something. Or like that.
Platform that you'd be stepping on or something like that.
So we've kind of covered the camera stuff. What about any like kit or gear? It's kind of been the year of the gyro.
Everybody's got their own gimbals. Yeah. I mean,
is there one favorite? I kind of like that cute little. Have you seen a couple of the 3-axis GoPro ones that are just handheld that are in the 250? Those look pretty sexy, and I don't know if I need one, but I kind of want one.
They're fun.
Yeah, just to have around. And actually, the was it Veravon? Was that the
the Birdie Cam. Or
the
whatever.
Birdie Cam? Out of all the gimbals that we saw, that one seemed like it had the best price to build quality match. It's $2,000. It doesn't use the round tubes, so you don't have to worry about slippage like you do with some of the less expensive ones. And it also had a nice thumb controller that was wired into the system so that you could go off control and then use the thumb controller to pan and tilt and stuff. And the price, I think, was $2,000 is what they're estimating for the release, which is a little expensive, but I mean, Movi and some of the other stuff, it's like, what, $15,000 for their starting
Well, we
rig?
built ours for $2,000, so, you know, and that's a self-built kit. DJI's is nice to show that, like, I remember Movi last year. I haven't tested it out this year, but Movi last year, you know, it would hit its limits and then it would start going crazy. DJI is like you. Just
I saw that flip
down.
around thing. That was pretty sexy.
Yeah,
So
one that even not only the flip around, but the putting it outside so you go through doors so it's long and skinny instead of wide.
Now, how much is the DJI system? I didn't check on the price.
I don't
like
remember
4 or
what he
5?
said. I think they're looking between 4 and 5. I did like on how clean and how toolless they made it.
A lot of quick releases and.
Yeah, so that's one of the main things. The one that I was most impressed with actually is by Lettuce, because they took a different design approach to it. They weren't just trying to build a gimbal. It's actually from an existing design that they had, and then because of the brushless motor technology, they were able to adapt that into their Helix design, which is the principle is that you're optically centering the camera, and that's because obviously a camera body itself, the optical center is not the center of gravity. So they get that balance point right first. They use these like wings with weights on them in order to get it offset the bottom, usually the bottom heavy, the weight there. And so you get that on that axis, on the roll axis, it's just optically centered. And it's all toolless. It's really easy. Once you get optically centered, it's really easy to balance. And any changes you make to it, as long as they're the symmetry is the same, like you're changing lenses.
Yeah.
It's just a couple seconds to rebalance, you know. But if you do that on a gimbal, you're now messing with your height and your thing. So you have to really spend a couple minutes. Not when I say a couple, I'm being generous. It's probably more like a half hour to an hour, depending on how experienced you are with your gimbal, to rebalance it if you want to just change a lens. And with this, it's just amazing, and it's.
And Sean's a tech on the gimbal. I'm the operator. So from an operator standpoint, I'm thinking when I'm pulling the gimbal like this, the camera's right here. So if I want the camera right here, I have to hold it like this. He's really tired.
He's getting really big shoulders now.
So like with Lettuce's design, the gimbal's right here. So it's basically like this.
Because they flipped the whole cage over and have it set underneath instead of on top.
The way that they said they designed it is they designed it from the bottom up instead of
top down.
Yep. And it's because, based on their previous design of the Helix, they're like, well, we could just add 2 more axes and we have a gimbal. So that's basically what they did. But the thing is, it's modular too. So if you just want the 1-axis stabilization, like the roll, you can just put that on a Steadicam, and then any wave you got in your Steadicam it's got a horizontal
leveler.
What is it? Horizon lock. That's what I'm looking for. Yeah. And then you can go 2 even, or all 3.
The system, you literally can pick and choose how many axes you want.
So I think the revolutionary part is getting it balanced to be optically centered. That changes a lot of things, and nobody was really doing that.
Right, because initially they were using heavier motors to try and overdrive the off-balance center. So by counterweighting it, they can use the brushless motors, which are a lot faster.
So you don't have to have as big of motors, making it lighter too.
And much faster.
Now, have you guys seen the 4-axis ones yet? I've only seen prototypes, but they have one that actually stabilizes up on top on the handle as well.
Yeah, we saw that.
And I've only used a couple of the brushless gimbals on a few shoots, and that was my issue. And I'm not. You have stronger arms than me, obviously. Look at my little tiny, scrawny arms here. Like I'm doing this in probably 10 minutes, and I'm starting to do this. Right? Yeah. And then as I get more and more tired, I'm doing more and more of this and just bouncing the thing around. And I saw one of those, and it's like, hey, watch this. And he's like this, shaking it up and down, and the rig is staying completely stable. And I'm like, holy cow. Oh, that.
You saw that here?
No, I saw that actually.
That
I
was
saw
the video.
that video. Yeah,
Yeah.
I posted the video. a while
My
ago.
concern with that would be
weight. How much
Like if you
Yeah.
add more weight to it, does it then, do you have to, is there a way to, because like in a
don't know.
Steadicam
You can
arm,
increase tension
you-
with heavier
yeah.
springs or something.
You
Yeah.
screw on the tension and that adjusts for it.
But he
so-
said he's not planning on doing anything. They're just kind of prototype.
It's yeah,
idea.
everybody's got their concept. Obviously, you can do like an easy rig with that
Yeah.
helps to absorb it. We saw, easy rigs are expensive. We saw a company that actually has a much cheaper kind of variation of the easy rig. They use bungee cords. And you could use it either with their gimbal or with a different gimbal.
It won't be perfect, it's using bungees, but it'll probably help dampen that quite a bit. Plus, not only that, it would help you operate longer.
Have you guys tried wearing one of those backpacks? I have never
Easier,
experienced it, but I
Needs
see
to
people
have,
like
like,
with
a-
the goofy thing
Yes,
coming over the
yeah.
top of their head, and they're like, yeah.
Yeah.
This is great. It always looked really weird and uncomfortable to me, but I don't know if that's
But
actually
you're
how.
putting, all you're doing is centering that mass on
Yeah.
your body, which is a lot more natural, and instead of out front here.
Yeah, I don't know. I probably should actually exercise a little bit and, maybe not be a scrawny. I mean, look at this. I don't even get any sun. I'm white. And,
Well, it doesn't matter. You just fatigue easy. You're just holding it there.
What did
Even
one
if
of
you
your
were.
fans tell you?
oh, he's So one of the fans met me on the floor, and he's like, you're a lot pastier in real life. You jerk. And that hurt my feelings. Like, I'm kind of like, I didn't think I was that pasty, but shoot, I look white in real life.
That's
Thanks,
why
man.
you just put all that digital makeup on.
Yeah, I thought you were
spent so
tan.
much time doing that.
Makes me. I almost like there's a little tear right here. No, but okay. So we've talked about the gimbals. We've talked about the cameras. Is there any one thing that you were like, holy crap, this is amazing? Besides those.
Well, my personal favorite thing, I actually knew about before NAB because I've been working with Kessler directly and getting some feedback from them. But their motion control jib crane that they're working on is basically an upgrade to the existing 12-foot KC12 that they have, which I have, and I have the center drive system. And I'm tired of doing slider motion control shots. Like, that's great. So I'm really looking forward to getting the full 3D space with it and their system. For a long time, last year they came out with like a more skinny arm, but for live motion it was really wobbly.
Yeah.
Great for time lapse, great for stop motion, but the live motion. So that was the big question mark. Like, are they going to be able to do a good live motion crane? I was playing around with it, testing it out, and they're getting really, really close to having it ready for operation. And so I'm excited about that because we're personally going into a lot more motion control, and that's a system that I have. So being able to upgrade and I already have like half of the gear because I've got the jib already. So for me personally, that is my thing that I'm excited about. For audience, there wasn't a lot that's really impressed me. One thing from a lighting standpoint is a DP. Alzo had this 300 watt LED light that was equivalent to like a 2K tungsten, but it was like $650 and daylight, very, very, very high output. But in comparison, price is great. Price is awesome.
Yeah.
Because I've seen some other systems out there that are like over $2,000 for an equivalent LED light. So that I'm probably going to buy like.
Well, even getting the really cheap HMI that we had gotten, that 1200 watt equivalent, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how much did we pay for that?
I paid $1,200 for that.
And that was cheap. That was like a Chinese knockoff cheap.
Yeah, that's great. Usually HMIs are like $4,000 or $5,000 or
Now the
$6,000.
ballast is broke because it was cheap.
Price out.
So
I've been actually looking into it, and this is one of the DIY projects that'll probably be coming up on my channel shortly. You can actually buy the LED packs directly from eBay from the Chinese manufacturers. You can get them in 100 watt sections, and you can get the drivers for them. And in order to cool each one of those, all you need is the same cooler that you use on your PC. So for your CPU coolers, you get a couple of those, put 4 of them in there, and now you have 800 or 1,000 watt equivalent output in a 400 watt package. And the space only takes up something about the size of something you'd put behind a Fresnel. So you put a fan in there and maybe upgrade an old Fresnel that you got from a broken down theater or something like that, and you have an LED package that's fallen into the $100 or $200 category. Now for professional work, I don't know if I would trust something like that.
And the other issue is CRI and how color accurate.
Yeah, and some of those are really, they get
crazy
weird
green.
colors, or you'll get some like purple fringing or some green stuff that shows up. And I've messed around with a few of them, and I'm not sure if it's going to be perfect, but I think it'll be a really cool DIY project, at least for the short term. And hopefully LED prices will continue to follow the trend that they've been doing recently and dropping every year. What's next after LED? I don't know.
Well, there's plasma lights, but those are still, technology is still pretty expensive.
Have you guys played around with the kicks, I believe is what they're called, where they have 4 or 5 different colors of LED, or 3 different colors, excuse me, of LED built into one panel?
Are those the little ones?
Yeah, they're little ones, and you're supposed to be able to set an exact color temperature and program that in wirelessly and have 4 or 5 of them around. Are those any good?
I saw them. My issue is strictly, you can get creative with a small light, but when you start having to combat large light or ugly light or daylight, you have to have a good amount of output. So I'm starting to build my kit to be higher power, which usually means HMI. So I'm always looking for alternatives to HMI because they're finicky, they're expensive, they're delicate.
And heat too.
Heat, man. But like the bulbs are crazy expensive, and then if somebody tries to hot strike it, the grip that doesn't know what they're doing, and now all of a sudden the light's gone.
Yep.
So LED has a huge potential. It's last year it started to get somewhere. The year before was barely anywhere, at least for high output.
Yeah.
And now I'm starting, like again, the Alzo light. Last year, I think the cheapest light I saw close to that output was a couple grand. So now $650. That's way more attainable to me, and that's a light that you'd use for some. I mean, they say it's equivalent to 400 watt HMI, and that kind of a light, if you buy 400 watt HMI, it's gonna be around $3-4 grand.
Now, for me, the biggest wow that I thought was Andra. I might be saying that wrong. Andra or Andra.
That's okay. I can't pronounce it.
Their motion focus system with using the boxes that they have with the low magnetic field. I was talking to one guys, about that because of course working on set with wireless. When we were there, our mic is picking up a high frequency whine from it and stuff, but it's actually weaker than the Earth's magnetic field. So it won't really affect electronics and stuff like that. But it's like a 16-foot area that box creates that you can add multiple boxes to create a larger area. But you use these RF, nodes, whatever you would call them, that communicates. It actually knows where that is in 3D space exactly. It can figure out those points. So they put a focus pulling motor on it with the brain and everything, and so it knows where the camera is and it knows where that is, and it's able to focus on that and fast too.
And it also recognizes orientation. So like like if you turn your head, the marker might be in the same spot.
So you put it on the back of the neck.
Right, and then you can tell it how far away from the marker is where the focus needs to be. But if you turn your head, that marker is still there. The focus would theoretically be here now.
Yeah.
And so, but they actually can detect orientation and make sure that.
Yeah, you can add nodes to it.
I haven't seen that yet. I haven't actually been able to do as much floor time as I really wanted to.
It's the big yellow booth back.
Yeah.
So go check it out.
Added to my list.
It's very new and it's very impressive. It has a lot of potential. I was talking to one of the guys and he wouldn't really talk about it, but obviously, they have those little GPS discs and stuff like that, where you can just put it on something, like on your keychain, so you'd always know where it is if you lose your keys. You can look it up. It's a low power, GPS thing. Yeah, all that stuff. Well, why not adapt that concept to their RF? Where you're just using a button battery to do it, and you can put that anywhere. Then just a really small receiver, and you want to talk about it. So they must be working on developing that, because right now it's you have a pack, and you have to run a cable up to it, which doesn't really work for some. Won't work for some situations, but
it's very new technology, but the potential is there, because especially that orientation thing.
That does sound really nice.
A lot of you can basically put spatial marks. So instead of traditionally on a focus pulling system, you'd have your mark, and that would be from this distance. What you can do is a spatial mark. So I could have you, and then the camera could be moving,
and it takes care of all.
But then if you hit the mark, it doesn't matter where you are. The camera is physically. The mark is relative.
Nice.
So it's a neat concept. It's pretty pricey at this point,
right?
But it's cool to see the technology.
It seems like a lot of camera manufacturers are actually interested in trying to integrate it into their cameras too. The other cool thing is going portable, like with the gimbal, doing that thing. Put a sensor on the camera, it knows where the camera is. Put a sensor on your subject, it's there, and then you have a guy with a boom pole that has 2 of them, basically creating a portable field around the whole area you're working, and they just use like a sound guy. They follow around. And
that can't move.
Yes, it can.
Well, you can't, but it has to stay. You basically put it on a stand. It has to stay, because as soon as you move that,
when I talked to him, he didn't say that.
You always said put on a stand.
Yeah, he said you could put on a stand, but if you're like in a studio thing or whatever. He's saying you could do that. I mean,
we'll watch our own
we can go. We'll watch the video. But when I was talking to the guy, I was under the impression I was talking about because I was worried about that. It's like because that severely limits it. Then. You're able to walk around and follow just like you would with Mike, and because it's I don't know. So maybe we answered on there. We'll find out.
Maybe
there's an FAQ really on their site. I don't know. So
again,
Sean versus Tony. We'll see who's right.
New technology, so it's like
it sounds really cool. I'm pretty interested in it. The thing that we were blown away by is, you know, last year there was a lot of rigs, but this year they made the change. They put wood handles on everything. So you walk around the floor and it's like, oh, it's the same rig as last year, except we've made it better. How'd you make it better? Oh, we put this machined wood handle on it. Oh my God, it's gorgeous. It's gonna be amazing. It changed the way you work. I was kind of disappointed. I was actually, I'm joking, by the way. I don't actually mean that wood handles are the future. It's just that we didn't see a lot of changes in rigs, and there's not a whole lot of ways that people can really advance these days. And so now it's all like, well, we're gonna cosmetically make this classier, and not to criticize Red Rock Micro, because I like those guys and I own a lot of their products, but they were like, look at this retro thing we have for the Blackmagic pocket camera. I mean, that's cool, but do I need a retro thing to attach to it? Is retro the next step instead of having like...
Well, they're going that Bolex style, I don't know, Super 30 or Super 8.
The digital Bolex doesn't really excite me either as a camera. I mean, 200 ISO, a giant box thing. I mean, if I really want to look cool and like I dress nice, obviously I don't dress nice. If I did, I would want one of those just to hold like this and, you know, maybe have like a French hat on or something like that. But otherwise, as an actual product, and a lot of the things where it's like, oh man, we really need to make this look nice, or we have this French flag that looks beautiful and it has all this design on it and stuff. It doesn't help you practically as a filmmaker. It just looks cute or it looks sexy or whatever. And I don't know if sexy is really advancing anybody's.
Well, speaking of the innovation of rigs and stuff like that, Edelkrone is amazing.
Oh man, those guys, I thought, you know, it's walking in there, it's like, oh, there's a spider attack that's going to happen, or robot spiders. Yeah. They're going to come out with arms and everything and crawl up and eat you or something.
Right. I like how they look at the engineering of it and everything in a creative aspect. So it's almost an art piece as well as functional. And they just come up with these creative solutions like the wing that we've shown.
The arm thing?
That arm, yeah. And I mean, it's still in work. They're trying to increase the weight capacity of it. But I mean, you have this, I mean, it's this big when it's folded up, but I mean, you have a full, like, more than a meter of movement, you know, if you put that thing on there.
I think it was 3.5 feet is how far you could go with that. And that's a really cool idea, and having the whole...
up or any angle. And so one thing that, obviously they design a lot of awesome things to keep them compact and small, and for smaller cameras. I want to see them to develop stuff like that for larger cameras.
Bigger stuff, yeah.
You know, I mean, start getting
I was joking with Kadir. I said, you know, I bet you when Transformers actually do come out, they'll be Edelkrone branded.
Yeah. They've got a good logo that would work on there.
We got to hit the floor.
Yep,
it's getting late.
Same for us.
Chatting with you, bro.
No problem.
Yep. See you guys later.
You guys have a good time, and we'll see you next NAB.
Sounds good.
Special thanks to our sponsors for making our NAB coverage possible.